Okay, welcome back. This is our final really video on the CO8 post-secondary sequencing and credentialing. We talked about there already is a separate video on program of study. This is from the printout version of the CIP self-review. So I wanted to start here because this really shows you, if you remember in CT Navigator, there were like 4 different things listed, and it clearly stated like pick one of the following. So a lot of us were, pretty reliant on articulations because we had good articulations, and we're revamping that process with Macomb Community College now. So I'm very confident that those are going to continue, if not get better. And that's this last section. But you also notice that there's not a pick one. They want all of it in there. And we revamped all of our program of studies, and there was a training video on that. But then you'll notice these 2 sections right here is credentials, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So you see that current approved Perkins 5 credentials, and then additional industry recognized credentials. They can both be in there, but they're actually listed separate. So if we look at how it looks in the actual portal, it looks like this. So now I'm in the portal. I have CO8 loaded. You see secondary post. This is the program of study. So I encourage you to watch that video on how to work with the program of study and upload that. And then it talks about current approved recognized credentials. And then the additional credentials is optional because you might not have an additional credential. And we'll talk about the 2 different scenarios. And then it talks about your current, your articulation, which I believe we spoke about in another video as well, but this process is being revamped right now, but we still do have good articulations. The ones that showed, I will say on articulations, if you have an articulation that expired last year during COVID, like June of 2020, when COVID kind of disabled all of us, really all of our systems. What I had an agreement worked out with Macomb is they just extended, they made a statement on their website where all those articulations live that extends all articulations through this year. So they're good. Even if on the articulation agreement, it states that it's expired, there is actually a blanket statement on the articulation page that identifies the need to extend. They were just so short on people that they couldn't do all of them at the time. So they did a blanket statement. But we're talking about credentials today. So what are Perkins approved credentials? Essentially, because of Perkins 5, eventually all CIP codes are going to be, locked into a Perkins identified credential. Business is going through it right now. Health, there's like credentialing, there's pathway grants that are out there that are identifying these new credentials and modifying curriculum around it. But a lot of that is in process. So which ones actually are identified? Let me do a new share and show you just my list right here. So if you look, programs with approved Perkins 5 approved credentials. So that first one, here's the list of CIP codes. Okay, so let's give you a minute, obviously networking, drafting. So if you don't see your CIP code listed on here, then technically you do not have a Perkins 5 approved credential. Now that doesn't mean you don't have a credential. It just means that you don't have a Perkins 5 approved credential. So if I go back into here, into my navigator, or not, I keep saying that, I swear in every video I say navigator, it's going to take me a while. If I go back into the CTE portal and you see current approved Perkins recognized, say I teach business, say I teach small engines, say I teach woodworking, all of which were not listed on that list, I would go under view uploads, current approved credential, and I'd simply say no. I don't have one for my CIP code, okay? Now, if you do, if you're under there, like I know auto, you guys are giving the ASC and all that. So you would put yes, and then you would use the template that I'm gonna show you to upload that. And I'll show you that in a second. But the other thing I wanted to address is this additional credential. So say you don't have a Perkins 5 credential, you'd put no. And then say you're not offering another credential either. Like you just don't have one right now. You're hoping to maybe incorporate one, which you don't. So this additional, you could put no to this one as well. If you don't have a credential, I don't want you to put it something in that's not true. So you would just put no there as well. But some of you, I know, you might not be on that list, or you are on that list, but you also offer another credential as well that you could put in your other credentials, like your Microsoft Office, your CPR, your SafeSurf, your just kind of throwing them all out there. I know there's a few welding ones that are out there that are being used that are not necessarily part of the Perkins 5, but they're a different credential that your advisors have used. You would put that in. So there's essentially two different spots. Your Perkins 5, which if you fall into one of these categories, they technically have Perkins 5 credentials. So where can you find those? If you do teach in one of these areas, if you go to, I'm going to move to our Google Drive. So you're used to this Google Drive. Okay, so it looks like this. This is our CIP self-review. You all should have access if you're in Macomb County. If you're a Macomb County CTE teacher, you have access to this drive. If you don't, please let me know and I will get you access. But we're talking about this CO8, post-secondary connection. So when I open this up, you're going to see there's all the program of studies, including the program of study video that was created, and the pathway documents. We've already talked about that. But then here is your credential template, which I will go take you into live. But this PDF right here, this is a credential list for this year. So if I were to open this up, you'll see this came out from the state. This is an updated list by, and kind of read through it. I'll let you read through it on your own, but you'll see here's networking, right? These are all of the approved credentials for networking. For drafting, it's Autodesk. For line worker, which we don't have any of those in our county, but for welding, it's the Sense certs. If I go through public safety now, public safety is a little bit challenging because, like many of you, if you're in public safety, you might be teaching the law enforcement. Well, you're not going to give firefighter 1 and 2, so you're just going to put no. You're not offering that credential. Health right now, it is EMT and CNA, which I know is problematic for many of you. So you might not have that. You might be putting some of your credentials into additional or optional, because I know you're giving them a different credentials. You just can't give these for whatever reason based on student age or certification of the teacher. So, but there's all those, and then the ASE, and then the collision. Sorry, I'm flying so fast, and the heavy equipment. So again, you're going to find that under the CO8 folder in the Google Drive. But the last thing I wanted to show you is the actual template. That's actually, it will serve the purposes of both the Perkins approved as well as the optional. Okay, I wanted to build it that way so that you didn't have, because I know there are some of you out there who will probably eventually give the Perkins approved, but then also have other ones that you want to list, or won't have a Perkins approved, but you want to list all of your certifications. So again, the top has a identifiers. This is a link to the Perkins 5 credentials, so it'll link you right back to where I was just showing you. And then if you do not offer, you'll put no for approved, or you'll put them in as yes. So let me walk you through this. So you put the credential name, where you offer it. Now, how many students are eligible? So if I'm teaching in business and I'm doing Excel certification and I have 150 students that I'm training, I'm going to put 150 students are eligible, because they are, but maybe how many actually achieved it. So maybe 90 passed. And the dates, they could be doing a date over a range. So I could put, we do this in December before Christmas. So I'll just say, December in dates. Or if it's a specific date that you test everybody on, put the date. Now, when I come over here to Perkins 5 approved, technically I'm talking about Microsoft Excel, and I'm in the business pathway, which doesn't have any right now this year, 2020, 2021. So I would just put no. Now, let's say I'm talking about, I'll do health, for instance. Maybe I am doing EMT. So I do EMT, I'm offering it into my second year courses. This is how many students, this is how many achieved it, this was the dates. And for health, I can say, well, yes, EMT is an approved credential. But I can also come down here and say, well, we also offer CPR. So I can put in CPR. Maybe they get a bloodborne pathogen certificate to say that they've been trained on that, or the various other, phlebotomy or different things that you might be doing in here. And again, who's eligible, how many achieved it. And now any of the ones I just mentioned that weren't EMT or weren't CNA, they would be a no for Perkins 5 approved because they're not on that list. So you're just identifying which ones are on this list and which ones are not. So if I go back to, I'm going to do a new share really quick and go back to what it looks like inside your CTE portal, you'll see that current approved recognized credentials. You would click here. If you don't have any, you just put no. If you do, you would upload the template there. If you have additional, or maybe you do have some that are not state approved or Perkins approved, not state approved, but Perkins approved, I would say, yes, I have some here, and I'm going to upload my template here. Now, if you think about it, the way that that template was designed allows it to be, it's really, you could use that same template for both this upload as well as this upload, depending on, I kind of created it because each zip code and each teacher is going to be a little bit different. Some of you will have neither under both of them. Some of you will have both under both of them because you'll have Perkins 5 and additional. Some of you will only have Perkins 5. Some will have not Perkins 5, but additional. So I just wanted to make sure you're aware that there are two different areas for the ones that have identified through the new legislation what by the state has come out and said these are the ones, but that doesn't mean that you don't have additional ones as well. So hopefully that helps. But again, just kind of finishing it off, going back to the template, you're just going to list all the credentials that are available in your program. You're going to identify whether it's on the approved list or it's not. And you can upload this one document into either of those slots, depending on where yours falls. So I know this one can kind of get a little confusing when we talk about which ones are approved and which ones are not. And essentially, it just means which ones have went through the process and been identified for that pathway. Eventually, all of our CIP codes, because Perkins 5 is now in play, all of our CIP codes are going to have an identified credential. It's going to take a few years for us to get it there. So hopefully this was helpful, and I will talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.